What series started off strong but then later went completely downhill afterwards? Big 733 said. Orange is the new black and weeds. Genji Cohen has no idea how to finish a series. Alpha Tango Foxtrot said. Surprise baby tends to signal the beginning of the end of most shows. It's basically lazy writing and we're out of ideas. Coleman Rosso said. FOP is insane at just how low it sunk. The well of ideas was so dry they dug clean through the other side of the planet and shot clean into space. DAR rules start as a binding set of laws that fairies and kids must abide by before being gradually lessened to the point where they're basically irrelevant. Timmy starts as this unfortunate kid who gradually devolves into a sociopath. Either DAR rules were lessened, or Timmy's deteriorating morals made him fearless against them. He once wished for everyone to stop aging so he could keep his fairies forever, then wished that they forgot he wished for it. He got away with that for 50 years. Poof was a dumb addition. The dog was an even worse addition to the point where they knew he sucked so they wrote him out with no explanation after a single season. The new neighbor Timmy has to share his fairies with was such a massive reach. The Jimmy Timmy Power Hour special served as the finale of Jimmy Neutron, as the production company was forced to close due to the financial failure of the Ant Bully, and would have worked better as a FOP finale as well. Also, these specials show just how low Jimmy and Timmy can sink when they enable one another. Attactus Trampaucus said. Arrow S2 was just so good. The second half of S1 was rather good as well, after the somewhat slow start. The end of S2 when he decides he's now Batman and won't kill anymore was worrisome. Then S3 came and was interesting until it got really stupid towards the end. I couldn't handle more than a few episodes of S4. Apparently the S4 finale was the series' all-time low and it gradually got less terrible from then on, but I can't be arsed to watch all the bullshit to catch up. Electronic Duck 3876 said. American here and I love the American version up until about season 5. What you say is true. The best supporting cast were all gone by then but they still had the same main cast and that's all it became was them making the same stupid mistakes over and over. When they turned Fiona from a very dedicated woman struggling to keep her family together to a complete fuck up, it completely ruined it. Sherper said. The difference between the high and the low of the general public's opinion of a property might not be more extreme ever than with Game of Thrones. Author 1 Alan Tent said. Game of Thrones was my favorite TV show ever. S4 is the best TV I have ever seen in my entire life. S8 is so bad I will never recommend this show to anyone. That tells you all you need to know. 1 AJ said. I've posted this before, but might as well repost it whenever someone brings up one of my favorite TV shows in posts like these. Season 1 and 2 of House of Cards is a masterpiece of storytelling. No one can convince me otherwise. Spoilers below. Beware. The story wraps up the main conflicts established in the very first episode. Every obstacle is addressed and overcome, and every single character who has won is given a complete arc, especially Doug where he succumbs to his ever-foreshadowed and then-present addiction that moved from alcohol to a forbidden relationship with a woman that he refuses to share with anyone no matter what. Even Zoe's arc met a logical end. She starts off as an ambitious woman seeking success wherever she can find it and a place in the sun. However, when she later uncovers the rotting darkness within that light, she chooses to pursue the truth rather than her ambitious dreams. This choice, brought on by her growth, becomes her undoing, character development that leads to her death. Brilliant. Mess One Tooth said. Forgetting Spacey's creepiness, I agree with this. The episodes depicting his rise to power were great but he ascended to the presidency way too quickly. But in retrospect, the producers probably feel they got lucky before Spacey got cancelled. I'd love to have been in the room when he or his PR people or whoever decided he should make those weird videos that he posted of him as himself but acting like Frank Underwood while stoking a fire and saying you didn't really think I wouldn't be back, did you? Lespergoodle 666 said. 100. The idea of 100 teens surviving on an apocalyptic world after 100 years with mutant animals and all was unique, but then everyone returned to Earth from ship, the mountain people and all that ruined it for me. Tom Club Them said. I like that too. In the way that people don't forget things. The guy whose father was killed 4 seasons ago is still pissed off about it. Edit. I haven't watched the final season yet. I thought the anomaly looks like it will be total bullshit. Season 6 wasn't as good, I felt they wasted a very good premise and the new kid is annoying. Edit 2. You guys are saying too much, so I'm going to skip the rest of this discussion. Bye. Bride of Kool-Aid Man said. Yeah, it was so good at the beginning. I felt connected to the characters. The romance angle was okay. The law angle was, of course, fiction, but they made an effort to make it somewhat realistic, kinda. Then it just turned into a lame soap opera, with everyone sleeping with everyone, gratuitous references to analingus to be edgy, and they decided to turn Frank, who was a cold-blooded killer who had no issues brutally murdering an innocent pregnant woman and lots of other people, into like, a freaking romance novel caricature, ripping off the shirt with his six-pack abs and wooing his woman, like come on. And the law angle just went straight out the window. All of a sudden the characters are solving what would be decades-long battles ending in the US Supreme Court in like 5 minutes in a local court. So lame. Basically they took a decent idea and turned it into a Days of Our Lives level soap opera. Heather said. Game of Thrones is the big one that comes to mind. Grey's Anatomy does this weird ebbing and flowing thing. I suspect it Manifest is gonna take hard dive towards the end of the current season. True Blood got so cluttered that I couldn't finish it. Eravan13 said. Yes, actually. Spoilers, the season 1 was fantastic. They used the premise in the cyberpunk setting. I loved it when immortality made his sister crazy. Not cray-cray, but all of her morals became non-existent to the point she pretended to her brother's love interest. It had wonderful world building, but it was all too fast. Then, they just didn't have much to explore in season 2. With some expectations, of course. Especially that little girl who was in a little boy's body or vice versa. The S2 plot felt generic and all over the place when you compare it to S1. Cedric said. This might be a weird take, but I just watched both seasons back to back and this still bothers me. The nudity. It's gone in the second season. At first I was shocked at the nudity in S1, but it's the perfect way to portray the degeneracy of their culture and using bodies like tools. I've realized that it was a perfect way to world build. In fact, I've become so accustomed to it that S2 was like a culture shock. Now all of a sudden people had very covering clothes. No back alley prostitutes, no revealing or even teasing clothes from the rich that lie forever. It suddenly lost all of its previous lore and became a generic future sci-fi. No cyberpunk at all. MLDPK4 said. Game of Thrones was absolutely terrorized in the final 2 seasons. You could make an argument for Season 7 as being somewhat watchable. Season 8 was like a dagger through the heart. I'll never get over it. Sparkle Cola Drinker said. I really think it's going to go down as one of the biggest nosedives in entertainment franchise history. GOT was huge during its heyday. We kind of forget now because of how quickly we all stopped caring about it, but it was a true cultural juggernaut. GOT merch was everywhere. It dominated pop culture. It was the zeitgeist. Season finales were like the Super Bowl. Those last 2 seasons, and honestly, 5 and 6 were slipping a bit as well, just destroyed the franchise, and took it out of our cultural consciousness overnight. Literally nobody talks about it now except to say man that show was good until it got ruined. Cataphractoy said. Yeah, most unsatisfying death ever. Cersei's death could have been so much better. Sandra running into her and then chucking her off a balcony. Hey, you know I'm right here. Arya killing Jaime and taking his face, and then killing Cersei while wearing it. Eaten by a dragon consumed in dragon fire. Sansa appearing out of nowhere writing a dire off that rips Cersei's throat out. Captured and executed via some means. Anything but a ton of bricks. Bus Stop Banter said. The fact that Jaime went back in itself wasn't so bad for me. The problem with it, and just about everything in the final season or 2, was the execution of it all. I personally feel like the story could have been written in a way as to show Jaime was irrevocably tied to Cersei, that he couldn't turn away from her completely. This didn't happen, of course. Like everything else that happened, none of it made any kind of sense. Characters went completely against their own established behavior, made completely nonsensical decisions. Everything felt utterly shoehorned just to fit the ending that they had in mind. Ugh, I'm angry about this show again. H3Oblad3 said. There's a prophecy where her younger brother is supposed to kill her. It's a large part of why Cersei hates Tyrion. It's a large part of why Jaime's character arc is almost certainly meant to end in him, personally, killing her. The Kingslayer striking again. The whole prophecy is cut from the show, so they obviously didn't know what to do with him. They should have had him leave Brienne and go kill Cersei anyway. It would have completed his arc, and then his death, if it came, wouldn't have mattered. His attempting to kill Bran to protect Cersei and himself starts the whole thing. His killing of Cersei to protect King's Landing should have ended it. Jaime, the Kingslayer, forced to make that decision twice despite all the shit it got him after the first time. Gaberzin said, "The whole premise of the show makes no sense when you look back on the finished product. How can King Arthur be the greatest king ever if he's in power for such a brief time and it was full of war and strife? What they needed to do was have the confrontation with Morgana and Mordred play out the way it did, but then for the last few episodes, age everyone up. Decades have passed. Arthur is an old man now, Merlin too. Magic was openly accepted again thanks to Merlin's actions. Now you wave your hands and bring young Morgana Mordred back, and the conflict resumes, only this time Arthur falls. You've stayed true to the mythology but also crafted a reasonably compelling series finale." Mesa93 said, "It was such a cool idea, detective series with a supernatural twist. Then in season 3 they turned the zombie aspects up to the 11 and they basically erased the main character. She started off with getting some new skills and flashbacks and then she basically became the person she ate. It's so annoying. I watched the 3rd season, but I had less and less fun with each episode, and then they went full on zombie apocalypse show in season 4, which is so fucking overused and boring. It really feels like they had some control group gather in the corporate building, ask 10 people what they like about the show, and the answers they got were zombies and funny character change skits, so they basically went overboard with these two aspects, killing everything else. It's truly a shame because it was such an interesting idea for a series that could be continued over multiple seasons, but they just went the road of escalating everything and it ruined it. Not every fucking series has to be about saving the world, for fuck's sake. You're a mystery detective show. Stay in your fucking lane." Quack21 said, "I'd argue that almost every show falls off after 2-3 seasons to some degree. It's often very clear that the concept for the show were way stronger at the start, courtesy of a good and well thought out idea from the creator. The showrunners then try to prolong the show because the TV station or streaming service ordered more seasons because of the first season's success, even though the show was never intended for more seasons. That's why I love miniseries at the moment, 6-8 episodes and then it's over. No matter the success. There are of course shows that stay good all the way, like Breaking Bad." The new BBS said, "I'll push back a little on this one. I stopped watching around season 14 and essentially had the opinion of only watch the first 7 seasons, 10 if you're bored for a long time. But during COVID, I figured I'd pick it up and see what I'd been trashing for years. It gets really bad from season 12 to about 19. That's where everyone jumps off, and for good reason. But starting in 20-21, it regains a measure of cleverness and seems to embrace the 'we've done everything, so what now' idea. The gag frequency goes back up, and a lot of them are actually funny again. The days of meaningful, impactful stories like Mr. Bergstrom are long gone, but at least through season 27, it's back to something I enjoy watching. I can't be the first person to say notice this, but the season that everyone seems to agree the quality dropped significantly, 10, overlapped exactly with the first season of Family Guy. I wouldn't be surprised if Fox leaned on The Simpsons writers to skew more toward the chaotic style of Family Guy, especially after the success of the first couple seasons. My personal theory is that's a significant reason for the quality dip in the teens, but I have nothing concrete to back it up." Banana Kilm said, "Bleach. It should have ended after they defeated Aizen. Instead, Kubo decided to recycle the story and now they're attacking Hueco Mundo to rescue another girl, and Ichigo got another power-up. And after that arc, Ichigo got another power-up in the next arc, and another in the next arc. It got so messy towards the end. Ichigo is now half human, half Shichigami, half demon, half Quincy, and still nobody get any idea how Dafaki defeated the last boss. It's a miracle that they're about to bring back Bleach. Hope this time Kubo got more time to do some serious writing." Black Dante said, "For me, season 7 was the last consistently funny. Season 8-10 were spotty, some episode funny, most kinda. 11 onwards is just embarrassing. The show is a shell of what it once was. The characters are just annoying. Peter was a lovable oaf, well-meaning but just a bit dim. Now he just does a bunch of random stupid shit. Brian was Peter's best friend, voice of reason, level-headed but still could go along with Peter's hijinks. Now he's just an insufferable, condescending, liberal douche, and womanizer. Meg and Chris were like misguided outcasts trying to find a way to fit in. Now Meg is just a gross punching bag, and Chris is just masturbation jokes. Lois was the level-headed housewife. She had a wild streak but was generally more thoughtful and another voice of reason for Peter. Now she's like a straight-up lunatic who hates her family. Stewie's one of the worst. Evil genius baby, hell-bent on world domination and matricide. Now he's just gay. Black Dante said. Even the side characters have been insanely philanderized. Quagmire went from smooth ladies man to a literal sex criminal and also constantly annoyed and bickering with his friends. Joe was the loving husband who had a strong sense of duty and lived well despite his handicap. Now he's just dumb crippled jokes and a sad loser with a wife who hates him. Pretty much every character is completely different than what they used to be, and the way episodes flow sucks. It's just random, effortless gags, meta jokes, and constant jabs at religion. It's such a shame how far the show has fallen. Philip Larinas said. Prison Break, the first 2 seasons were some of the most amazing TV I've ever seen, should have ended right there. But they got greedy and tried to stretch it out. Season 3 was just a repeat of Season 1 and Season 4 was an incoherent mess. The X-Files, the movie should have been the climax of the series. The season after the movie should have been the last where they wrapped up all the storylines. Instead they got greedy, stretched the shit out, Mulder left, the show got whacker and ended with a whimper. Fringe, first 4 seasons were amazing. The final season shut the bed and completely ignored and swept aside all the awesome mythology that had been created in the previous 4 seasons. Nip Tuck, the show jumped the shark when they moved to LA. The storylines got increasingly less and less realistic and the show just got repetitive. True Blood, the first season was really the only great season, but Jesus, talk about a show that overstayed its welcome and got increasingly more outlandish as it went on. The Man in the High Castle, the first 2 seasons were amazing, but you can tell that because of the show's success they wanted to stretch it out. Seasons 3 and 4 are uber whack. Devs, the whole premise of this mini-series was already wacky, and then they stretched this out into way more episodes than they should have, becoming increasingly more pretentious. Marianne, great mini-series that could have been told in half the chapters. The Outsider, same as above, 4 chapters would have been enough. A lot of filler. I See the Fnord said. The Man in the High Castle. The first 2 seasons were amazing, but you can tell that because of the show's success they wanted to stretch it out. Seasons 3 and 4 are uber whack. I like The Man in the High Castle throughout. Yeah, sure, it's whack at the end, but this is fucking Philip K. Dick we're talking about here. If it wasn't, something's wrong. I thought the Nazi hippies were absolutely hilarious. If Dick had had any idea how to end a story instead of just stopping writing when he got bored, or his mental illness caught up with him, perhaps we'd have ended up with something better. But the adaptation is better than the original book, which ends pretty much at the end of Season 1, by a lot. Hugh Cox Caesar said. Thomas the Tank Engine. It started out as a show that anyone could enjoy, then the failure of the live-action movie with Alec Baldwin, which was made after the creator's death because he never would have approved of it, BTW, caused the show to be bought by a different company, which then dumbed it down for toddlers, turned it CGI, dumbed it even more, sold it to a different company which made the show briefly good, then they made Thomas Go Around the World, and when that, unsurprisingly, failed, they decided the original wasn't popular and rebooted it. Don't look up the reboot. Nuclear Wasp Family said. I think it's sort of the nature of the show. Seasons 1 and 2 reveled in irreverence, and their appeal was just how uncaring Rick was and how funnily mean the cosmos could be, but you can only keep that going so long before the series starts to stagnate. You need to give characters something to grow towards. I feel like the show is still trying to find its footing. I thought some of the more dramatic character-focused episodes weren't really that powerful. The Fruity Land episode, Pickle Rick, for example. But the show had to give their characters more depth and growth to stay good. It's either that or embrace the Simpsons model of flattening your characters and just selling a shit ton of merch. Equal12 said. Naruto had a great start with really cool characters, other than Sakura, and interesting world building. The story originally had such a cynical but realistic worldview which made sense for ninjas, especially young ones that were essentially child soldiers. The fights were much smaller scale than your typical shonen like Dragon Ball, Bleach, Or even One Piece where they were a battle of tactics and on-the-fly wit. Sadly, after the end the Akatsuki arc, the series went completely overboard with over-destructive battles of single shinobi being able to blow apart mountains, and it just made all the clans way more lopsided with power scaling. Like in the beginning of the story, the Byakugan and the Sharingan were practically equal abilities, but after Sasuke got the Susanoo, the competition was over. Not to mention the complete hypocrisy of the themes of the story and the numerous retcons. I still love it and it really could have been way worse, but I'm still felt a bit unsatisfied with some characters and forgotten plot lines. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. 0xD153A53 said. The Big Bang Theory started as a show about nerds for nerds. Quickly evolved to snatch the larger demographic of people that laugh at nerds. Once they wrote out Raj's inability to talk to women, he became a token minority. Sheldon went from being the socially anxious awkward guy to just being an asshole. When they started pairing off characters, Sheldon's counterpart was far better designed for early season Sheldon than the asshole they turned him into. Leonard's character never evolved beyond being a doormat. Wolowitz is just a walking stereotype. The best character, and actor, on the show was Wolowitz's mother. Raptor Pedicure said. They are rather good at creating tropes and then beating them to death. I watch it now for comedy and when I need an excuse to absolutely tear something apart. Oh, look. A loved one dies and becomes a zombie and they're crying as the beloved zombie shambles after them. They're crying harder now they have to kill their zombie person. Oh, look. The bad guy is out in the open with hundreds of guns pointed at him, but he's allowed to monologue and then escapes thousands of angry rounds because after all this time and after fighting all these bad guys, Rick and the gang still can't aim for shit. Oh, look. It's a big, scary zombie. We should all scream and fight and run away. Even though 2 scenes ago someone killed one with one blow to its Susie head with a potato masher. Oh, look. Someone backstabbed. And now the backstabber is back with their original group. And look. They're backstabbing again. Don't these people ever learn to just kill backstabbers the first time? Coleman Rosso said. The Office is such a huge offender. Regardless of one's feelings on Michael Scott, the show doesn't improve in his absence. Pam and Jim's relationship is drawn out way too long. They finally get married in a great episode. Then they have to throw wrenches into their relationship. Jim becoming an ass and not telling Pam anything. Pam almost getting with a now visible sound guy from the camera crew to keep some focus on them. The rotating managers were great for the novelty of guest stars. Then Robert California overstays his welcome. This is before factoring in that the additional hires from Saber add nothing to the show. Clark Duke, Catherine Tate, and Jake Lacey don't do anything of value other than occupy space. The biggest sin of all is probably what they did to Andy. He starts out as this cocky and selfish jerk, then gets humbled a bit only for them revert him back to a jerk but with added incompetence. They completely destroyed his character because they needed to have some kind of dumb manager without Michael.